Okay, folks, so we are going to be looking at labs a little differently this year because of the restrictions on the lab. Um, it's going to make labs a little bit different than what they've been in the past. The good news is that this dual credit biology 1 class is pretty small, and so I still feel like we're going to be able to do labs because we'll be able to socially distance, and I have enough equipment that you won't have to share with a group. The other thing is, when I feel like we can't do that safely, we will be doing lab demonstrations. You'll even see in the or the second unit, there is a pH lab demonstration that I'm going to do in class. We will video it as a class for anyone who's virtually learning, and then we will complete the lab sheet together as a group digitally and submit. We're also going to do a lab on biomolecules because it's really kind of cool to look at how our foods have different macromolecules in it. So we're going to be looking at that as well. And so since that is in the second part of this first unit here, I wanted to take a few minutes and just walk you through how we're going to do a lab report. Now, in the past, my students had a lab notebook. They would turn it in, I would grade it, and I would give it back. But we're really striving to go paperless this semester just to reduce the risk of transferring COVID-19. So because of that, I'm going to revert back to an old school way of doing lab reports, and I want to show you how the setup of lab report looks and where you're going to submit your lab report. So I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see the Google Classroom. So right here, this is our dual credit biology classroom. And I'm sure at this point you're all pretty familiar with it. So when you click on classwork, it takes you to our classwork stream. And so of course we know the welcome because we've seen it before. But right here you're going to see lab info. Okay, so the lab info is going to tell you how to do your lab report. And down here, you will see in Unit 2, there's a biomolecule lab. This is going to be your first lab report. And you'll see here it says, we will complete this lab in class. Students who are virtual watch the video of the lab once it has been run in face-to-face class. You will submit your lab report here as an attachment. Information on how to complete the lab report can be found under the lab info tab. So we're going to go back to that in just a few minutes. So when it comes time to do your lab report, you will submit it here under the title of the lab, and you're going to do your lab report as a Google Doc. Okay, so let's go back up to lab info, and right here you'll see a tab with some material on there, and this first sheet or this first attachment says dual credit formal lab report. So we're going to click on that, and that is going to, there it is. We're going to open it up as a Google Doc because it just makes it a little prettier to look at. So here we go. And here we are. So here is our formal lab report setup, and this tells you how you're going to do it. And like I said, I have not done this in a long time. I went to lab notebooks about 5 years ago, so this is something that I'm having to pull back out. And once again, we may have some glitches in the system when we start submitting, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So for the formal lab report, I've got you this little table, and if you want to make a copy of this, please go up here to File, Make a Copy, and then save it to your Google Drive so that you can edit it. Please don't edit in here if it gives you the option. You shouldn't have the option, but just in the event that it does, because this is for everybody to look at. So if you type anything in there and it is viewable by everybody, they're all going to see everything. So just if you want your own copy, just click Make a Copy. When you click Make a Copy, you can change it. And so dual credit formal biology and put your name, Jane Doe, and then save it. Okay, so right here, this is the content of your formal lab report. So you'll have a title page, and it's a page by itself. So type in the title, space on down, and go to page 2 for the next part. On page 2, you're going to type the purpose of whatever the lab was. Typically, the lab's purpose is already stated on the lab sheet. So all you've got to do is just go in and copy that. So that's pretty easy for you. If objectives are given, You just type those in, okay? Depending on the lab length, you may have lots of purposes, and so you have to type them all in, okay? Then we're going to do our hypotheses. And for our hypothesis, depending once again on the lab, you may have multiple hypotheses, but basically, what are you trying to find in this lab? What do you predict you're going to be able to do at the end of this lab? Then your materials, once again, that's given to you on your lab sheet. I know this first lab, you're going to have some things that'll be a little different for each of you, but you'll list your materials. And please notice that I asked for them to be in column or columns. I don't like a paragraph of materials. I want it to be very, very rigid columns. All right, then your procedure. Procedure is step by step of what you did in the lab. Sometimes labs have multiple procedures, and so you'll just say, procedure 1 to find this and type it out. Procedure 2 to find this and type that out, so on and so forth. And then you have your results. Results are usually a table, a chart, a graph. You'll put those in there, and you do not explain your results here. This is just simply what you found, okay? Then comes the bulk of your report. The bulk of your report is this, the discussion of results. Now, everything up until this point has been given to you, okay? So, I'm expecting perfection because you're not having to think on it. Discussion of results is where everybody will be a little different because your discussion of results is literally what the title says. You are going to discuss your results. You are not going to state the procedure in a new form. You are not going to state your results in Word form. You're going to tell me why you think you got those results. What things in that lab did you find surprising in your results? What things did you know you were going to find, and what led you to know that beforehand? So you literally discuss your results. It needs to be one full page tight, double spaced, and you need to make sure that you have a good discussion. If you hand in a lab report that just states the procedure again and states the results in Word form again, you're going to lose all 30 of those points, okay? So if you have questions, you can ask me. Almost every lab assignment has some guiding lab questions at the end. Those are not for you to write in and give me the answer, just blah, 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 in your discussion results. They are used to guide you. That kind of gives you an idea of what I'm looking for in the discussion of results. Then finally, you have a conclusion. The conclusion is really very short, 4 to 5 sentences. What did you learn? What would you like to do differently? What's something else that you would like to, try? And what could you take from this that you can use in your everyday life? In the event that you miss a lab, you kind of lucked up because all of our labs will be recorded. So hopefully you won't have to do an absentee report, but if for some reason something happens and you miss a lab and we don't get to record it, we'll talk about absentee reports one-on-one, but rather than waste time, we're just going to pretend like you're not going to miss any labs. Lab reports need to be 12 font, double spaced, nothing crazy. I prefer Times New Roman or Arial as your typeset. Make sure that you double space the entire report. Even though it's just the discussion results, I'm really looking at double space. I want to see the whole thing nice and neat and formatted, okay? Lab reports are assigned at least a week in advance, so I expect them to be due or turned in on the day that they are due. For every day that a lab report is late, you lose 20 points on the grade, okay? So please make sure that you get that in on time. The lab reports all count as one major test grade, so make sure that you turn in your lab report. And we will not be turning in lab sheets. We're just going to turn in the lab report. You will get a grade for the lab, and then you will get a grade for the lab report. And I grade you on your lab by in class or by through your lab report, looking at your procedures and your results, okay? So that's how you do the lab report. Back in the classroom, you will also see that there is a rubric. This rubric is what I use to grade your lab report. So just so that you know that that's there. And if you want to go back and look and see how many points something's worth, you can always go back and check that out. Okay. So I look forward to seeing your first lab reports. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and I'll be glad to help you. See you later.